In 1986, the world was shaken by the devastating Challenger explosion, a tragedy that claimed the lives of 7 exceptional crew members. It was a sorrowful one that even the then President Reagan declared a week of mourning to honor their sacrifice. Till today, many wonder what happened to the bodies of these crew members. Were they recovered? Were they given a proper burial? Or were they lost in the explosion? Join us as we uncover these details. Before we delve right into what happened to the bodies of the Challenger crew, let's first get to meet the crew members, the brave Challenger crew members. On July 19, 1985, a pivotal moment unfolded as Krista McAuliffe, a dedicated schoolteacher, received a letter that would alter the course of her life and ignite a national dream. Out of a pool of over 11,000 educators, McAuliffe was selected to become the first teacher in space. The sheer magnitude of this opportunity overwhelmed her as she envisioned the possibility of sharing the awe-inspiring wonders of space with students across the nation upon her return. What initially seemed like a historic mission brimming with promise soon became overshadowed by the looming tragedy that lay ahead, unknown to anyone at the time. The news of McAuliffe's selection spread like wildfire, reminiscent of a celestial explosion throughout Concord High School in New Hampshire and beyond. McAuliffe's colleagues, family, friends, and students were enveloped in a wave of euphoria and pride, realizing that her journey to space wasn't just a personal ambition, but a symbol of inspiration for an entire nation. As a pivotal figure in the Teacher in Space project, McAuliffe wasn't merely destined to be a passenger on the Challenger. She planned to conduct live lessons from the cosmos, captivating the imaginations of students nationwide. Anticipation soared as it was envisioned that upon her return, McAuliffe would embark on a nationwide lecture series, cementing her legacy as a champion of science and technology education. McAuliffe, alongside her esteemed crewmates, including Commander Francis R. Scobie, embarked on an arduous training program at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, in preparation for their groundbreaking mission. Contrary to any doubts about the crew's abilities, their qualifications were exemplary. Commander Scobie, a seasoned pilot, had already proven his mettle in high-stakes missions aboard STS-41C. Michael J. Smith, his co-pilot, brought a wealth of experience with an impressive flight record spanning various aircraft types. The team also comprised accomplished astronauts like Judith A. Resnick, whose pioneering contributions to NASA's operations had solidified her place as a trailblazer among female astronauts. Ronald E. McNair, the second African-American in space, brought his expertise to the mission, alongside Ellison S. Onizuka, the first Asian-American astronaut. Completing the team was Gregory B. Jarvis, a payload specialist tasked with conducting experiments for Hughes aircraft, marking his long-awaited space debut after previous setbacks. Each of them brought their own expertise and groundbreaking achievements to the mission. Despite their exceptional qualifications, signs of potential trouble loomed on the horizon, hinting at a tragic outcome that would ultimately shake the nation to its core. So what was this tragic outcome, and what led to it? Keep watching to know. The Space Shuttle, a spacecraft operated by NASA, was a groundbreaking innovation in space exploration. Making its inaugural flight in April 1981, it served as a versatile platform for conducting in-orbit research and deploying a wide range of payloads, including commercial, military, and scientific missions, consisting of the orbiter, external tank, and 2 solid rocket boosters. The shuttle's design allowed for partial reusability, with the orbiter serving as the crew and payload carrier. The orbiter, a winged vehicle, launched vertically and landed as a glider, housing the crew compartment where astronauts lived and worked during missions. Powered by 3 Space Shuttle main engines mounted at the aft end, the shuttle provided thrust during launch. Once in space, maneuverability was facilitated by 2 smaller orbital maneuvering system engines. Challenger, the second orbiter constructed, underwent conversion from a structural test article to serve its operational role. However, with each trip, the spacecraft faced relentless wear and tear. necessitating constant behind-the-scenes repairs to replace parts worn by the harsh conditions of space travel. Unknown to many, these unseen cracks would eventually lead to an irreparable tragedy. While the Challenger had been a source of national pride for years, it would tragically claim the lives of some of the nation's best astronauts. Yet the question arises, were there warning signs of the looming threat? Or did the crew's lack of experience play a role? Let's delve deeper to find out. Unheeded warnings. The Challenger spacecraft provided early indications of impending disaster, as engineers gave reports that went unheeded. Despite months of intensive training, both the crew and the nation eagerly anticipated the scheduled launch date. However, their hopes were abruptly shattered 6 days prior to liftoff on January 22, 1986. Their mission would be delayed until the return of another shuttle, 61C, which had encountered setbacks and was not expected to land until the following day. The weight of disappointment was palpable. Every space mission held immense significance, representing a culmination of dreams and aspirations, even for seasoned astronauts. The allure of the unknown and the beckoning call of the stars served as a powerful driving force for all involved. This seemingly minor setback felt like an eternity to a crew eager to etch their names into the annals of history. As the day approached, the Challenger crew found themselves restlessly waiting in their quarters, yearning for dawn to break and herald the beginning of their historic mission. However, if one assumed they were on the brink of embarking on their journey into space, they were in for a jarring revelation. As the launch date approached, a sense of unease began to settle among the team. A concerned engineer approached their superior to voice serious reservations regarding the integrity of the rocket seals in the cold temperatures. Despite being previously dismissed, this persistent worry continued to cast a shadow over the mission, serving as a chilling harbinger of the darkness that would eventually engulf the entire endeavor. In reality, this instance was just one in a series of concerns raised about the spacecraft. For over 2 years, a disquieting murmur had reverberated throughout the shuttle program. Engineers and technicians had repeatedly expressed apprehensions about pushing the spacecraft beyond its limits. While the shuttles were hailed as marvels of engineering, there lingered an underlying awareness that even the most resilient machines have their breaking points. The weather forecast for January 28th predicted record low temperatures for a space shuttle launch, with overnight temperatures expected to plummet to 18 degrees Fahrenheit before rising to 22 degrees Fahrenheit at 6 a.m. and 26 degrees Fahrenheit by the scheduled launch time of 9:38 a.m. Given previous instances of O-ring erosion during warmer launches, Morton Thiokol engineers expressed concerns about the potential impact of these frigid temperatures on the sealing capabilities of the solid rocket booster. Cecil Houston, the manager of the Kennedy Space Center office of the Marshall Space Flight Center, convened a conference call on the evening of January 27th to address the safety implications of the launch. During this call, Morton Thiokol engineers highlighted their apprehensions regarding the reduced elasticity of the rubber O-rings in colder temperatures, fearing that they might fail to properly seal during launch. The engineers stressed that they lacked sufficient data to ascertain whether the O-rings would effectively seal at temperatures lower than the previous coldest launch at 53 degrees Fahrenheit, 12 degrees Celsius. Robert Lund, Vice President of Engineering, and Joe Kilminster, Vice President of the Space Booster Programs at Morton Thiokol, recommended postponing the launch until temperatures rose above 53 degrees Fahrenheit, 12 degrees Celsius. Following a recess for private discussions among Morton Thiokol management, the teleconference resumed with a change in the company's stance. Morton Thiokol leadership asserted that the evidence presented regarding O-ring failure was inconclusive and cited a substantial margin of safety in the event of a failure or erosion. Consequently, they decided to proceed with the launch, ultimately submitting a recommendation for launch approval before concluding the teleconference. Lawrence Malloy, the NASA SRB project manager, engaged in a discussion with Arnold Aldrich, the NASA mission management team leader, regarding the launch decision and weather concerns. Surprisingly, Malloy omitted any mention of the O-ring discussion during their conversation, and both parties agreed to proceed with the launch. Despite lingering concerns, anxieties were brushed aside as the clock continued to tick relentlessly. As dawn broke, painting the Atlantic in shades of orange on January 28, 1986, a mere 2 hours and 38 minutes remained before disaster would ultimately strike: the launch. As the scheduled launch hour approached, crowds of spectators gathered around Cape Canaveral, a diverse mix of press representatives from around the globe, local residents, and eager visitors who had traveled far and wide for this historic event. This wasn't just any ordinary launch. It was an opportunity to witness history in the making, particularly with the inclusion of teacher Krista McAuliffe among the Challenger crew, which had generated significant interest in the mission. With this being the 25th Space Shuttle launch and Challenger itself being a seasoned veteran embarking on its 10th mission, there was a prevailing sense of confidence due to its flawless track record. Amidst the anticipation, cheers erupted from the crowd below as the astronauts donned their spacesuits and prepared for the journey ahead. Stepping out of their transport vehicle, they waved to the enthusiastic onlookers, their strides purposeful and determined. An elevator stood ready to transport them to the cockpit of the Challenger, where their final preparations awaited. Meanwhile, back in Houston, Mission Control buzzed with activity, as hundreds of sensors on the spacecraft transmitted a constant stream of data, meticulously monitored and double-checked to ensure that every aspect of the Challenger was in optimal condition. As the astronauts settled into their seats, their safety harnesses secured, and the hatch sealed with a faint hiss, Commander Scobie and Pilot Smith conducted final checks, their anticipation mingled with a palpable sense of tension. With a mixture of nervous energy and excitement, they stood on the brink of realizing a long-held dream, while the eyes of the world watched on in awe and anticipation. On board, the Challenger was a crucial scientific payload, including the tracking and data relay satellite, tasked with relaying vital information, and the Spartan Halley spacecraft, intended for deployment. However, tragically, the execution of these experiments was thwarted. Unfavorable weather conditions also caused a delay in the spacelift. After a period of waiting, with the skies clearing and the winds subsiding, preparations resumed. Commander Scobie and Pilot Smith meticulously ran their final checks as a symphony of instruments and sensors hummed to life. The steady voice of Mission Control resonated through the cockpit, counting down the seconds. 10, 9, 8. Anticipation gave way to intense focus and concentration. 7, 6. We have the main engine start, signaling the beginning of the ascent. With a surge of power, the Challenger came alive. 7, 6. We have main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff. The Earth trembled as the solid rocket boosters ignited, emitting a thunderous roar that reverberated for miles, shaking the ground and rattling windows. Astronaut Judy Resnick's voice echoed over the intercom, exclaiming, "All right," as a wave of collective excitement rippled through the crowd below, with a resounding declaration of "All systems go." Echoing through the intercom, the Challenger embarked on its journey with a fiery roar as the boosters ignited. Standing tall at 184 feet, it symbolized human ingenuity reaching for the sky. This triumphant launch marked the beginning of a successful year for the Challenger, completing 6 additional missions in 1983. With 8 explosive bolts firing, the Challenger broke free from its earthly constraints. Like a majestic bird released from its cage, it began its ascent into the unknown, a trail of fire and smoke marking its journey as it soared into the sky. The heartbreaking crash. 73. Seconds into its final flight, the Challenger roared with immense power as its boosters ignited. The crew's calm voices filled Mission Control, unaware of the impending disaster. Suddenly, flames erupted from a failing seal on the right booster, causing a catastrophic explosion. This tragic event starkly contrasted with the excitement of the Challenger's first mission on April 4th, 1983. The crash of the Challenger marked the beginning of a difficult ordeal for those tasked with locating the crew members' bodies. Initially, everything seemed normal as the main engines roared to life at 10.04, confirming a successful liftoff. However, a disquieting silence loomed behind the scenes, and a data blackout at 10.25 raised concerns, initially attributed to interference from launch structures. Shortly after liftoff, ground-based observation telescopes detected abnormal black smoke emanating from the right solid rocket booster near a crucial O-ring seal. Despite this alarming sign, neither the crew nor mission control initially recognized the severity of the situation. Unbeknownst to them, the black smoke was indicative of hot gases leaking from a faulty O-ring seal, compromised by cold temperatures on launch day. As the Challenger continued its ascent, routine procedures were carried out without any indication of impending danger. Launch commentator Hugh Harris's announcement that the shuttle had cleared the tower at 9.47 further fueled false optimism, momentarily overshadowing the troubling smoke. However, at 10.44, technicians observed a concerning anomaly, a slightly elevated internal pressure reading on the right booster. This subtle clue hinted at impending danger amid the celebratory atmosphere. Nevertheless, unaware of the deteriorating conditions, the crew continued with their tasks, with Pilot Smith initiating a roll maneuver at 11:08 to position the Challenger for its mission. Tragically, they remained oblivious to the silent countdown to disaster unfolding before their eyes. The moment of horror arrived at 11:27 a.m., a mere 19 seconds after liftoff, when the dream of a successful mission turned into a nightmare. The Challenger shook violently, lurching to one side with alarming force. Pilot Michael Smith, displaying remarkable composure and aided by the navigational system, fought to regain control of the spacecraft, briefly stabilizing its trajectory. A glimmer of hope emerged at 11.43 as the crew followed protocol and throttled down the main engines, momentarily restoring a sense of control. The Challenger appeared to be back on track, hurtling toward its intended destination. However, this respite was short-lived. At 12.01, as the shuttle approached the sound barrier at 10,000 feet, Commander Scobie delivered a chilling report. Visibility from his window was compromised. Unknown to them, this ominous warning signaled the impending catastrophic disintegration mere seconds away. Despite entering a zone of intense air pressure, a routine part of the ascent, all systems indicated normal operation at 12:19. However, beneath this deceptive facade of normalcy, plumes of black smoke continued to churn. Then, at 12:53, a burst of light near the right wing sent shockwaves through the spectators. It was the initial spark of the impending inferno. Moments later, a colossal orange fireball erupted from beneath the right wing, unleashed by the failing booster. What's even more astonishing is that instrument readings inexplicably remained within normal parameters, masking the true extent of the unfolding disaster. While the Challenger hurtled toward oblivion like a ticking time bomb, its internal gauges painted a picture of stability, lulling the crew into a false sense of security. At 13:28, just under a minute after liftoff, the Challenger surged to a staggering speed of over 1,500 miles per hour. Commander Scobie calmly initiated a throttle down, a routine maneuver during the spacecraft's ascent. Time pressed on relentlessly. At 14:46, as the Challenger traversed through the region of maximum aerodynamic pressure, a critical O-ring seal in the booster suffered a catastrophic failure. This moment marked the tipping point, igniting a terrifying chain reaction. Flames erupted from the ruptured seal, engulfing the right side of the shuttle. It's conceivable that at this juncture, 73 seconds into their ill-fated journey, the crew confronted the grim reality of their situation for the first time. Their aspiration of venturing into space had swiftly transformed into a desperate struggle for survival, a battle they, tragically, would not emerge victorious. What followed next is a testament to the crew's remarkable courage in the face of imminent peril. Initiating emergency procedures, they endeavored to throttle up the failing engines in a desperate attempt to regain control. However, the Challenger had become a doomed vessel hurtling towards an inescapable fate. By the 74-second mark, a somber realization likely dawned upon the crew. They were no longer embarked on a mission of exploration, but were hurtling towards impending destruction. As the Challenger, weakened by the breach in the booster, succumbed to the forces of the explosion, the crew cabin disintegrated. Miraculously, for a fleeting moment, the cabin remained intact, but the rapid loss of atmospheric pressure rendered the crew unconscious. In the months that followed, search teams painstakingly recovered the wreckage, providing a heart-wrenching confirmation of the crew's tragic fate. The Challenger disaster laid bare the vulnerability of human life in the face of immense power and the relentless pursuit of scientific advancement. The sacrifice of the Challenger crew spurred the implementation of enhanced safety protocols, ensuring that future space missions would be undertaken with a renewed emphasis on caution and a profound reverence for the inherent risks involved. Analysis of the wreckage. The crew cabin, constructed from reinforced aluminum, separated intact from the remainder of the orbiter. It followed a ballistic trajectory, reaching its highest point, approximately 65,000 feet above the Earth's surface, about 25 seconds after the explosion. At the moment of separation, the cabin experienced a maximum acceleration estimated to be between 12 and 20 times the force of gravity. Within 2 seconds, the acceleration dropped below 4G, and within 10 seconds, the cabin entered a state of freefall. The forces exerted during this phase were likely insufficient to cause significant injury to the crew. Evidence suggests that at least some of the crew were alive and conscious following the breakup. Personal egress air packs were activated for Pilot Smith and 2 other unidentified crew members, though not for Commander Scobie. The activation of Smith's PEEP, located on the back side of his seat, indicated that either Resnick or Onizuka likely activated it on his behalf. Investigation of the remaining unused air supply in the PEEPs aligned with the expected consumption during the post-breakup trajectory. Upon examining the wreckage, investigators discovered that several electrical system switches on Smith's right-hand panel had been moved from their standard launch positions. These switches were equipped with lever locks that needed to be disengaged before they could be adjusted. Subsequent tests concluded that neither the force of the explosion nor the impact with the ocean could have displaced them. This evidence suggests that Smith attempted to manipulate the switches, likely in a futile effort to restore electrical power to the cockpit after the crew cabin detached from the rest of the orbiter. Finding the bodies. The fate of the crew of the Challenger spacecraft was sealed by the unimaginable force and impact of its collision with the ocean. The crew compartment bore the brunt of this violence, suffering obliteration due to the immense pressure and speed involved. Search crews were well aware from the outset that recovering intact bodies would be an insurmountable task. In the aftermath of the disaster, a comprehensive 3-month-long search and recovery operation unfolded. Immediately following the tragedy, NASA's Launch Recovery Director dispatched 2 SRB recovery ships, MV Freedom Star and MV Liberty Star, to the impact area to collect debris. Additionally, support was requested from U.S. military aircraft and ships. Due to falling debris from the explosion, recovery forces were kept away from the impact area until 12:37 p.m. As the operation progressed, the size of the recovery efforts increased, involving 12 aircraft and 8 ships by 7 p.m. surface operations focused on retrieving debris from the orbiter and external tank, with the surface recovery operations concluding on February 7th. On January the 31st, the U.S. Navy initiated submarine recovery operations, prioritizing the retrieval of the right SRB, followed by the crew compartment and remaining payload components. Formal debris search efforts commenced on February 8th, led by the rescue and salvage ship USS Preserver, and involving a total of 16 ships. These vessels utilized side-scan sonar to conduct the initial search, covering an area of 486 square nautical miles at water depths ranging from 70 to 1,200 feet. Sonar operations identified 881 potential debris locations, of which 187 were confirmed to be from the orbiter. The recovered material, though fragmented and crushed, bore witness to the ferocity of the impact. On March 7th, Air Force divers identified potential crew compartment debris, which was later confirmed by divers from the USS Preserver. Examination of the crew compartment indicated that it had largely remained intact during the initial explosion, but sustained extensive damage upon impact with the ocean. Tragically, the remains of the crew were badly damaged from both impact and submersion, precluding the recovery of intact bodies. Traditional methods of identification, such as fingerprints or dental records, were rendered ineffective due to the fragmented nature of the recovered material. Despite these challenges, scientists persisted in their efforts, ultimately identifying remains belonging to all 7 crew members. However, the severity of the damage made it impossible to ascertain the exact cause of death for any of them. The USS Preserver also played a crucial role in multiple trips to transport debris and remains to port, continuing crew compartment recovery operations until April 4th. However, a tragic incident occurred during the recovery of the crew's remains, when Jarvis's body drifted away and was not located until April 15th, several weeks after the other remains had been positively identified. Upon arrival at port, pathologists from the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology worked diligently to identify the human remains. Complications arose when medical examiners in Brevard County disputed the legality of transferring human remains to U.S. military officials for autopsies and refused to issue death certificates. Eventually, NASA officials took the unprecedented step of releasing the death certificates of the crew members. The recovery efforts also yielded significant findings related to the spacecraft's components. The inertial upper stage, IUS, intended for boosting the orbit of the TDRS-B satellite, was among the first pieces of debris recovered. Surprisingly, there was no evidence of premature ignition of the IUS, which had been one of the suspected causes of the disaster. Debris from the 3 Space Shuttle main engines, SSMEs, was retrieved between February 14th and 28, and post-recovery analysis indicated a scenario consistent with functional engines suddenly losing their LH-2 fuel supply. Deepwater recovery operations persisted until April 29th, with smaller-scale shallow recovery operations continuing until August 29th. A significant discovery occurred on December 17, 1996, when 2 pieces of the orbiter were found at Cocoa Beach. Then, on November 10, 2022, announced the discovery of a 20-foot piece of the shuttle near the site of a destroyed World War II-era aircraft off the coast of Florida. This discovery was later featured on the History Channel on November 22, 2022. Nearly all recovered non-organic debris from the Challenger is interred in Cape Canaveral Space Force Station missile silos at LC-31 and LC-32. NASA's response. Following the tragic incident, NASA took decisive action to enhance the safety and reliability of the Space Shuttle program. A significant aspect of this initiative was the redesign of the solid rocket boosters, which were later known as the redesigned solid rocket motor. This redesign was conducted under the supervision of an independent oversight group. One key improvement involved modifying the joint structure to include a capture feature on the tang around the interior wall of the clevis aimed at preventing joint rotation. These enhancements significantly reduced the potential for joint rotation, minimizing the risk of O-ring seal failure. Furthermore, heaters were installed to maintain consistent, higher temperatures of the O-rings, further enhancing their performance and reliability. Beyond the SRBs, NASA implemented stringent safety standards across other components of the Space Shuttle program. Notably, an escape option was introduced, allowing astronauts to jettison the side hatch and extend a pole out of the orbiter. This enabled them to slide down the pole to safety, mitigating the risk of collision with the orbiter as they bailed out before activating their parachutes. In response to recommendations from the commission investigating the incident, NASA established a new Office of Safety, Reliability, and Quality Assurance in 1986. These proactive measures underscored NASA's commitment to enhancing safety protocols and ensuring the integrity of the Space Shuttle program, reflecting a comprehensive approach to addressing the lessons learned from the Challenger disaster. burial, and legacy. On April 29, 1986, the astronauts' remains were transported via a C-141 Starlifter aircraft from Kennedy Space Center to the military mortuary at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. Each of their caskets was draped with an American flag and accompanied by an honor guard, followed by an astronaut escort. Upon arrival at Dover Air Force Base, the remains were transferred to the families of the crew members. The final resting places varied for each astronaut. Scobie and Smith were laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery, while Onizuka was buried at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific in Honolulu, Hawaii. McNair found his resting place in Rest Lawn Memorial Park in Lake City, South Carolina, before being moved to the Dr. Ronald E. McNair Memorial Park within the town. Resnick's remains were cremated, and her ashes were scattered over the water, while McAuliffe was buried at Calvary Cemetery in Concord, New Hampshire. Jarvis was also cremated, and his ashes were scattered in the Pacific Ocean. Unidentified crew remains were interred at the Space Shuttle Challenger Memorial in Arlington on May 20, 1986. A single grave marker serves as a permanent memorial, honoring their sacrifice and ensuring they are remembered as a unified crew. Privacy for the families of the deceased astronauts was prioritized during this challenging time. The Challenger disaster deeply impacted the nation, and a memorial at Arlington National Cemetery bears the names of all 7 astronauts, ensuring their courage will always be remembered. Their shared resting place signifies unity as a team with their spirits forever connected and soaring among the stars. Though they may be gone, the memory of the Challenger crew remains vivid in the annals of space exploration. Let us honor these brave souls with words of condolence in the comments section. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed it. To know more about other real-life events, tap on the link that pops on your screen. See you there,